Welcome to Jamaica Trottings. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Now, pretty much everyone who has taken some interest in Jamaica knows about the Klansman trial taking place at the Supreme Court in downtown Kingston. 33 alleged gangsters are being tried as members of an organized crime entity. So far, there have been two unnamed witnesses who have taken the witness stand. Obviously, there are people in the streets who know who these guys are. Both of them have given riveting testimony about the organizational skills and wickedness of the Klansman breakaway nation and its leader, Black Man. People may be asking, why am I referring to the man, the Don, as Black Man and not to his Victoria Jubilee name? Well, these criminals don't operate as Mr. So-and-so. So, we will refer to them as they prefer to be called in these streets. Now, the Chief Justice of Jamaica is a Mr. Brian Sykes, OJ, right? He's a judge who is handling this trial. He's also going to be chief juror. I mean, this is not a jury trial, this is a judge trial, right? On Thursday of last week, there was an interesting exchange between Mr. Sykes and the prosecutor. Here is some background. So as you see on the screen, it seems to me that Chief Justice Mr. Brian Sykes is bored and wants to go home or go on a date or go on vacation or something. So let us give you some background as to why we are saying this. So let us read what happened. Chief Justice Brian Sykes on Thursday scolded the prosecution in the trial of 33 alleged members of the One Don faction of the Spanish Town-based Klansman gang, saying the proceeding is not a commission of inquiry, as he shut down questions to a state witness about the gang's activities which the former gang member did not participate in. The prosecution had been quizzing the witness about an alleged murder carried out by the gang in Central Village before he joined the gang when Sykes intervened. Noting that the witness was not a member of the gang at the time of the incident, the Chief Justice said the evidence must be tied to the indictment. Well, that makes some sense. I don't know what a lot of this is connected to as far as the indictment is concerned. This is a criminal trial. We had this now for 2 weeks. I have allowed this to go on long enough and we have to get some shape and focus. Now, I agree with the judge that you must have shape and focus in any aspect of life, in any organization, in any job, in any venture. But what is the limit, right? You know, a cricket game can last 5 games in a test match. A soccer game is 90 minutes plus extra time. So what is the length of a trial? I mean, a pickpocket trial and the guy pleads guilty and you go to the court and he may not even have a lawyer. And that's it, he pays a fine or he gets a couple of days or well. Let's hope they should be getting some tamarind switch. But who sets a limit on a major trial with 33 witnesses? Right? So he's saying, we are at this now for 2 weeks. I have allowed this to go on. Right? What is the rush, Mr. Sykes? Anyway, the prosecutor responded that much of the evidence given by the witness was used to identify the gang members. So therefore, it's all about context. Now, let us say, no, I am not an attorney. I don't know anything about the law, but we live in the world, and so we have heard things that we come to certain conclusions. What I do know is that in some countries, they have gang legislation specifically designed to fight gangs. Now, gang legislation does not necessarily target any specific act. It does not necessarily target a specific murder, a specific robbery, but typically targets an organized group of activities by an organized group of people, whether it is male or female, right? So when the learned judge says he was not a member at the time of the incident, at least the guy's providing context, because you would have had to join the gang and he would have been hearing stuff in the streets. But let's keep going, right? However, Sykes pointed out that may be true, but there are charges under the indictment, and that is what I'm here about. But Mr. Sykes, educate the people. Paula Llewellyn, we need to hear from you. Mrs. Llewellyn or Ms. Llewellyn, we need to hear from you. We understand that there may be specific instances that are being spoken about, but if you have 33 guys, surely all 33 guys can go on one operation, and therefore they are not being tried about one operation where 33 guys went on one mission. Right? And if each of them, let us say, went 5 at a time, which seems reasonable, and there were 6 missions, 6 5s 30, right? 2 weeks is not enough time to provide context. So what is Mr. Justice Sykes rushing the prosecutor? Now, I don't want to go back and tell you what happened in the Uchain Wilson trial or the Georges Valley trial, those gangs in Westmoreland. And the same thing seems to be happening here, right? But let's keep going. The Chief Justice continued, "This is not a commission of inquiry into organized crime in Jamaica. We are not going there. This has to come to an end at some point. There seems to be no end in sight here. I have to see the connection with the indictment." The witness then moved on to outline details surrounding other murders which he claimed he participated in or had first-hand knowledge of, right? Among the alleged murders was the killing of 2 people in an area known as Fisheries. And, he goes on and he talks about all the gruesome details of stuff that they did. And, if you can do your research and find about a lot of these murders, a lot of these assassinations, a lot of these killings, burning Molotov cocktail bombs, and a lot of foolishness, right? Mr. Justice Sykes, some jobs are forced on people, right? Some people are forced. In fact, I don't know, some people even claim that the social consequence of poverty and destitution in some of these neighborhoods is what forces some of these guys into gang lifestyle, and they pretty much don't have a choice. I'm not here to debate that. I don't know. I don't live in those areas. I don't know a lot of people that come from those areas per se. In this era, I knew people from back in the day, and I know they were progressive people. I met them in schools and different institutions and workplaces and so forth and so on. But let's talk about Mr. Sykes. After naming Brian Sykes as Jamaica's new Chief Justice, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has come under fire and heavy criticism. The controversy is over the appointment of Sykes as acting instead of a full permanent appointment. Holness asserted the Sykes permanent appointment would depend on his performance. Now, based upon this man, listen, Sykes is a very smart guy. And he has done a lot of stuff in terms of improving the efficiency of the courts and respecting the courts, and he's talking about security. And we're going to talk about security later, cleanliness in the courts and everything. But what the Jamaican people who don't have any reason to go to criminal court, hopefully not as a defendant and hopefully not on behalf of a family member who has been murdered or killed. What we need is to remind Mr. Sykes that this job that he's in right now, that he would have applied for the job. It wasn't forced on him. And not only did he apply for the job, but he lobbied for the job. And I'm not going to get into all of that, but he had people lobbying on his behalf. So, for example, we hear people like the Jamaica Council of Churches. They said, "The appointment of Jamaica's Chief Justice should never be clothed in any garb that even remotely suggests a catering to the personal pleasure of any member of the executive." Right? We also had Attorney at Law, former Prime Minister Percival J. Jackson. Nobody knows what that J means. In an interview on Nationwide Radio, argued that the acting appointment has placed Sykes in an unpleasant position as the Chief Justice should not be fettered and the separation of powers must be maintained. Now you see, because this guy is not fettered, now he's free to do what he wants to do. And now Mr. Sykes is telling us that this thing must move along. This thing is rushed along. This guy is telling us that this is not a commission of inquiry. But it is not every day, Mr. Sykes, that we have 33 people on trial. Now Spanish Town. Now crime is spread all over the 14 parishes in Jamaica. It's worse in some parishes, worse in some sections of some parishes. But Spanish Town, if there is such a thing as the golden child of crime, is the golden child of crime in Jamaica. Businesses cannot operate in peace. People cannot run stores or businesses in peace. The bus park, every single bus or taxi that comes onto that bus park has to pay some sort of extortion fee. I remember one time I went to Spanish Town and I was just sitting in a car. and it was a bigger than normal car. It would look like a little minivan. And some idiot, some joker who was sitting at a stall came over in the car and just peeped. He didn't say anything. I know what he was doing. He was checking if we were running a taxi, because obviously if we were running a taxi, we would have had to pay dues or pay tribute to these dons. Now, I don't remember who would have been the don of this gang at the time, or whether it would have been the Klansman or the one other. All I know that boy was a criminal. I wish me could have did the boy something, but you know what I mean? That was just a thought. But let us keep going. So let us put some of this in context. Here's another speech that just before the trial started that was given by Chief Justice Sykes, right? So everything has to be taken in context. Maybe the gentleman is correct, but he has to understand that because he has taken the role of judge and juror, right? And he has, I didn't provide the proof here, but some months ago or about a year ago, he gave some speech or some lecture where he was arguing that, hey, maybe we could move this thing along faster if we had more judge trials as opposed to juror trials, right? Now, listen, man, people must be judged or should be judged by their peers. I don't know what the law is where as it pertains to determining when someone is tried by a judge as opposed to a juror. Maybe someone could chime in and help me. But for some reason, this gentleman is cherry picking the top cases and letting guys in the streets. Why am I saying that? So let's hear what Mr. Justice has to say. Brian Sykes is arguing that the new public officials protection system policy doesn't give equal or adequate consideration to the security of judges when it was being conceptualized. Under the new policy, not all public officials, including members of the judiciary, will automatically be assigned a case protection officer, or what they call a CPO. Let us hear Mr. Sykes.
It seems to be dedicated more to the effort to get more police officers onto the road or actively investigating crime, as it is said, as distinct from the security of the judges, particularly at the parish court level. And of course, the masters of the Supreme Court, who, as I said, were not even regarded as judicial officers according to the policy. They are not mentioned at all.
Okay, the policy which was announced by National Security Minister Dr. Harris Strong last week will see several police officers being relieved of their duties as, well, security officers to serve elsewhere. Dr. Chang said that a relatively low threat to public officials, there's a low threat to public officials, it's better to deploy these officers on the front line fighting crime in light of Jamaica's gang problems. The assignment of privately contracted protection officers will now be based on a threat assessment and approval by the police commissioner. That means if the police commissioner like you, now I'm going to give some little idiot to defend him. Anyway, according to Justice Sykes, the judiciary wasn't a part of extensive consultation before the policy was made public. So this brother he won't be a part of the conversation. He no want to hear no edict like the teachers sit down in some place in St. Thomas, license are all in place there, and the education minister does give an edict and them have to take it. But his brethren say, listen, I have to be a part of the conversation anyway. Meanwhile, the Chief Justice is questioning whether private bodyguards will be subject to non-disclosure agreements, and he goes on to discuss issues of things like in the family courts where you have things which should be private and people shouldn't be running off their mouth and gossiping. And I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I really don't have a problem with that. Chief Justice Brian Sykes speaking at a virtual conversation with the judiciary recently. He's also raising concerns about the contractual arrangements and remedies that will be available if a private security guy is absent from his duties. If a man call out can be a mother sick or in busk or wildland community, because most of these security guys, they just don't live in what we call uptown neighborhoods. And so let's hear what Mr. Sykes had to say with that concern.
This concern is not just academic, it has real and practical significant for courts that sit in camera, such as the family courts. The private person who comes here will be subject to confidentiality agreements not to disclose the nature of the proceedings and what happens there. So a lot of things will have to be.
So you see, Mr. Sykes is concerned about his security. He's concerned about the security of himself as the Chief Justice, the other Supreme Court judges, parish judges, resident magistrates, because basically what is happening is that the big shot security minister has said, you know what? The crime level, the threat level for judges is so low that we don't need to be wasting police time. Right? We don't need to be wasting precious officers' time, elite officers' time, to go and protect judges like Mr. Sykes. And I tend to disagree with him, but in the case of Mr. Sykes, why would I disagree? Because Mr. Sykes has released criminals back in the street during the Uchel Whistle trial. He's released criminals back in the streets during the Georges Valley trial. It seems like the same is about to happen, because if you are rushing a trial with 33 guys and you can't get proper and appropriate evidence, and I understand some of the responsibility does rest with the prosecution, we know that. But if the prosecution is going to do a good job, they have to be allowed the time and the latitude. The defense attorneys, the defense counsels will have an opportunity to challenge everything that was said on the stand. Right? So we want Mr. Brian Sykes to understand that a lot of people in the street are viewing this trial as a commission of inquiry into crime in Jamaica. This is not a regular criminal trial. If it is a regular criminal trial for crimes committed in Spanish Town, which is in the parish of St. Catherine, then it should have been in that tore up, broken down court in Spanish Town with whoever the parish judge is. Maybe a night court and them do it in a 1 hour and set the man them free. But you, sir, are the Chief Justice, the top judge in the country. And you cherry-picked this trial, or it was given to you out of some sort of preference. Right? And therefore you must understand the magnitude and the importance. And we are not saying that you are to take away their right. But some of these things should be foregone conclusions. The people are tired. Right? The laws, the fairness, the justice, the human rights are in the favor of the criminals. Right? And the prosecution is trying, and they must come strong. But we understand that in Jamaica there's a culture where people cannot, who live in these communities, cannot, if you understand the lay of the land, Mr. Brian Sykes, they cannot come and testify about any of the acts that they have seen, though they have seen them. Stop calling for people to come and testify. Stop calling for people to come and give evidence, because in these places nobody knows who is who. Sir, we are calling upon you to be patient. We are calling upon you to do your job. We are calling upon you to cancel all vacation, cancel all dates, cancel all Bible study, cancel anything. Only if your children are graduated from university, that's the only thing, right? And concentrate on the trial. Don't break it for coronavirus. Don't break it for the flu. Don't break it for even a hurricane. Because we don't want to break no momentum and give these guys a chance to come up with some plans and some plots. Good work, Mr. Witnesses, especially the second one, because he is giving, the first one was giving like a story, like a narrative, like a Nancy story. Good stuff, perhaps real, but no evidence really. The second guy seemed to have had evidence and backative and proof and police involved in his escapades, right? And the other thing, Mr. Sykes, you are an officer of the court, as I understand it. And even if these things are not related to the trial, or to the indictment, as you have stated, this guy is reporting a crime. And as an upstanding Chief Justice, could be, I don't know who is the chief legal officer in the country, you are obligated to take note and understand that the guy is reporting a crime, and maybe those guys should be rearrested on the stand for these allegations. And even if these are not relevant for this trial, maybe they should be tried at a later date. You cannot put it out of pocket. Crimes have been reported. I mean, we have this phenomenon in Jamaica where police says, you gave a statement, but you never made a report. You just come at the station and talk to me, but you never tell me, say you want to make it official. What kind of rubbish is that? Listen, Mr. Justice, you're a bright guy. You're a great administrator. But right now we wanted to make great judgments on behalf of the people. Give the people them right, give them due diligence, hear out the prosecution, hear out the defense, but lock up them boy there and send an example. Give them some sentence where man really think about them thing there when they are tempted to be lured into a life of crime. This is Jamaica Trading. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.